Welcome to Alliance for a Viable Future podcast. I'm Lev Natan, your host and executive director of Alliance for a Viable Future. I want to wish each and every one of you a happy Thanksgiving here in 2021. I felt called to reconnect with this podcast. I've allowed it to uh, take a break. I've been taking a break from it for a few weeks or more because of the intense focus that I had to put into, or that I chose to put into, the incredible Indigenous Peoples Day event series that we produced in the Berkshires in Great Barrington. There was a 4 event series that you can read about. We got wonderful media coverage for that. So now I felt called to share some words about Thanksgiving, and in particular to acknowledge and to honor our Indigenous relatives here from the Northeast. Um, so what I want to say for myself is, I'm not a historian, by profession, but for many years, about 15 years now, um, it's been a passion of mine that has now emerged into a desire to give back. And I shared at the panel discussion for Indigenous Peoples Day, which was posted as our last podcast. So you can go back and listen to that right at the beginning. My speech, I share my own experience, and I've shared before of how much appreciation I have for the Indigenous ceremonial way of life and how it really transformed my life. Going through uh, what I've heard called a dark night of the soul about 6 to 8 years ago in my own life, and really questioning my life, whether I wanted to be here or not. Having suicidal thoughts, actually, and having uh, Indigenous ceremony, the sweat lodge, and then other ceremonies, the teepee and the Sundance ceremony that I have been fortunate enough to be participating in. Um, it gave me strength. Someone asked me recently, that's strange that it gave you strength and courage. It seems like it takes a lot of strength and courage to, participate in those kinds of ceremonies. But, it's like a chicken and the egg kind of thing. You go in there, or I went in there because there was something that called me in that space, the teachings, and then the importance that I had a sense intuitively of the importance of initiation. In particular, for men, women have their own initiations. For me, I'm a man. I needed initiations in my life in order to step up and to step into the path, or onto the path fully, that I'm now walking. And I credit and give thanks deeply, a humble, bow, and hearty handshake to the Indigenous relatives and elders that I have in my life, and other non-Indigenous, non-Native people who have taken a hold of the ceremonial way of life in a very sincere way. So I say thank you. My hat off to you. My hat's off to you. And for me, I can go back to my own personal story, but I've spoken about the deep inspiration that I have for the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, the Iroquois Confederacy, as the Westerners called those peoples. The Haudenosaunee Confederacy came about, in a time before the white colonists arrived. The exact dates are uncertain, and it could have been any time from 1,000 years ago, when the PeaceMaker is who is referred to as the one who brought together 5 warring nations, native nations, into a confederacy of peace. And it was quite remarkable. The books that I've read, I can look back on my shelf right now. They should be there's one up there. It's called The White Roots of Peace. That's a very poignant articulation of that story. And then also Return of the Bird Tribes. Oh, they're both there. White Roots of Peace by Paul Wallace. And then Return of the Bird Tribes here by Ken Carey. And I've also been reading this wonderful book, Unlikely Alliances, Native Nations and White Communities Join to Defend Rural Lands by Zoltan Grossman, the foreword by Winona LeDuc. So I'm just sharing these resources here on Thanksgiving because as we become more awake to the new story, the old story, the ancient story, the real story, whatever you want to call it, the story of interconnection, of interbeing, of alliance building, the story of a viable future. It requires us, or it calls upon us to educate ourselves. I'll just speak for myself. I've been inspired to educate myself, and it transforms my own thinking and even my feeling in my heart. As I read about the PeaceMaker, in particular, the fact that Thomas Jefferson, who was one of the main writers of our Declaration of Independence and the Constitution, and also how our federal government and then state and local governments as well were formed and structured with the three: the House of Representatives, the Senate, then the executive branch, and then the military. Many of those structures and the thinking behind how to put those structures together and voting, all of those kinds of things, actually, believe it or not, came from the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Truly, I kid you not. If you read these books, that's what they'll say. That's what I read, and I've heard also from Chief Jake Swamp of the Mohawk Nation, who's told the story, the oral story of the PeaceMaker and the forming of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. That's what they'll say, because that is how that governmental system worked and operated. There was different, houses, different aspects of the government that made different kinds of decisions, and then they would go to the next body that would then ratify it, so on and so forth. Sorry, I'm not doing it justice, but a few of the things in particular, the fact that we vote on a president, and after 4 years we vote again, and then after 8 years, if that president is elected twice, they can't run again. We take that for granted, that that's just how things were in the past, and how that's just how it is. That's just, we assume that that's just our reality, and it is our reality. But that came from somewhere, is what I'm saying. It came from the Haudenosaunee, the idea that a leader should not be in power like a king forever until he dies. A leader should serve his people or her people, for a certain period of time that's prescribed, like 4 years, like 8 years, and then move on and allow someone else to step up. And so that form of servant leadership comes from the Haudenosaunee. And then there's something in particular that for whatever reason that we're clear about, actually, the relationship with women and the respect for women. Women were held in the highest regard in the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and as we can see from the history of our country, it took us some time to catch up. Thomas Jefferson, the founding fathers, they maybe saw that and they said, whoa, maybe they couldn't maybe even see it. The fact that women had the final say. First of all, it was the women that chose the leaders, that nominated the chiefs, what we call the presidents and the senators. They nominated those people. They would look and see, who is this person worthy of that office, that position, and then they would go to the men's councils and say, we want this person to become a leader. So first of all, the women were the ones that chose the male leaders, and then once the male leaders, the men, were in decision-making roles, in particular, I remember learning this, that the decision about whether to go to war or not, that's really an ultimate decision, whether to shed blood of your own people and to defend your own people, to risk defending your own people against, shedding blood against neighbors. It's a very important decision, not to be made lightly. And it wasn't made lightly at all in the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Once the men councils said, yes, we do need to go to war, the women's council would have the final say. They say, yes, we want to do this. The women could vote it down and say, no, hold your horses, get a hold of yourself. There's another way. There's diplomacy. Let's talk it out, for example. But maybe they would say, you know what, you actually are absolutely correct in this situation. So I wanted to share those things. Maybe you can share them around your Thanksgiving table. Hopefully I'm getting this podcast out before you can listen to it before your meal on Thanksgiving. And if not, you can just continue on the conversation. And then, the last thing that I learned, not many things that I learned, last thing I want to share in regards to honoring Indigenous people on Thanksgiving, to give thanks to our native relatives, is something that Bonnie Hartley shared. I've been sharing it quite a bit with in meetings and conversations. She shared this on our panel, which you can listen to on YouTube or on this podcast. She said that when her ancestors, the Stockbridge-Munsee Band of the Mohicans, when they were, I don't know what the proper word is, I'll just say the vernacular is, that when they were kicked off this land where I live in the Berkshires, by the colonists who lived here, they were told to leave, go west, we don't know where you're going to go live, but it's not our concern. That's how I understand it, to make that kind of a gesture of be gone. It's really heartbreaking that that's part of our history, and it's important that we remember it so it doesn't happen again. And when we see it happening now in many different kinds of ways in our society, that we can say, hey, we need to root this out. We need to stand up and have the courage. All that being said, Bonnie said the grandmothers, the women of her tribe, when they were leaving, what they told, the colonists, perhaps, they told the women, the white women, the colonial women, they said, I'm just adding that, so I'm not sure. They said, whatever you do, protect the new Lebanon spring. Whatever you do, protect the new Lebanon spring. So that really had an impact on me, as I let that sink in, that would be what they wanted to say, their last words. And I believe it's connected to the indigenous wisdom and the perspective, the worldview that I've heard uh, as the 7 generations. That the grandmothers, they were concerned with the water. Now that's our job, to be concerned for the water, to continue on, to take up that lineage of water protection. Here, the new Lebanon springs, that's sacred spring, all the springs and the wells, the water table. My wife, who inspires me in regards to water protection, she told me, we were dealing with an issue in regards to wetlands, development around wetlands, and she said, you know what? Everywhere is a wetland. There's a water table everywhere. Whatever we do to any of the land, it will impact the water. Anywhere and everywhere, all the waters are connected. It evaporates, it becomes rain, right? We have acid rain. So I wanted to share that native teaching, and perhaps you can honor that teaching at Thanksgiving. I'm going to do that, is put some water on your table and make a toast. Maybe you'll make a toast with a champagne or wine or whatever you want to do with Thanksgiving. But I invite you to make a toast to life itself with a cup of water, a glass of water. Say thank you to the water, and say, in this coming year, I'm going to step up my game in terms of water protection. I might not know what to do right now, but I'm going to make that commitment. I'm going to make that commitment to do everything in my power to learn the ways of being a water protector. So I wanted to share those words at this time, and then say one more time, happy Thanksgiving to you who's listening, to your family, to your community, to all of your relations. And happy Thanksgiving to all of our indigenous and native relatives. I hope everyone has a warm meal, a hot meal to eat on Thanksgiving Day. And whether you're with family or, even if you're alone, you're part of the human family. So I want you to feel really good tomorrow, feel some warmth in your heart, to be part of this human family that we're learning together. We're not perfect. We make mistakes, but we can stay focused on our unity, our interconnection. So wanted to share those things. Thank you so much. And just a couple other announcements if you'd like to stay on. That was the main message there. But the first announcement is just around AVF, what we're doing here at this time through the winter months of November, December, even into January. After putting on this Indigenous Peoples Day event series in the Berkshires, it was quite remarkable. We had around 300 people who gathered for Indigenous Peoples Day, and then 3 other events. So, and there was over 500 people, I would say, who participated in one way or another. And the impact went further than that in regards to the newspaper articles, the TV news reporting. So it was a lot of energy for me personally, for our team, and then me personally. Then our family moved into a new apartment, just the following week. So I've just been settling into this new office space and really needing to take a step back and to take a breath after all of that engagement and contribution. And so it's just something I wanted to share about our work ethic here, that it is important to produce, to work, to create, to contribute, to be generous, to give. And then it's also important to then take a step back and take that out breath, like the ocean. The waves come in and then the waves go out, that natural cycle. And here in the winter time, as the days are getting shorter, it's becoming darker, earlier, and wake up in the morning, it's still dark. It's a time to go inward. It's a time to slow down. And, with that natural cycle, that's what I'm doing. It's a time, going back to the PeaceMaker, that's in the winter time. That's when that story was read in the longhouse, is what I heard, is what I learned, that it was a 9-day long story. For 9 days, they told a story because that's what they were doing. There was nowhere to go, no rush anywhere. It's a time of vision, a time of story, of renewing and rejuvenating our vision for what is to come in the springtime, in the summer, for the coming year. So that's what I'm doing, is taking that time to regroup and to kind of clear the decks, to go through my files, journal, think about what is to come. And I've already been doing that for a couple of weeks. And the other announcement I want to share is what I've gotten clear about moving forward is our organization, Alliance for a Viable Future, has a commitment to two main offerings, two main programs, so to speak, that align with our mission to generate Northeast climate leadership. Number one is Indigenous Peoples Day, having event series around Indigenous Peoples Day, second Monday in October, each and every year here in the Berkshires, and to starting next year to offer trainings and coaching, consulting, guidance, workshops, trainings to other communities, in particular in the Northeast. If you're listening to this and you live in the Northwest or some other place around the United States, North America, Canada, anywhere around the world, and you want to reach out and say, hey, I want to do a training for our community, please reach out. And my primary mission is to create, or our mission as an organization is to create Indigenous Peoples Day events with alliances, through alliances with non-native people in every town, community, every city in the Northeast, in New England, New York State, even up into Canada, by 2030. Every community in the Northeast, to create that interconnected web, a pulse each and every year. I'll talk more and more about that as on this podcast and through our organizational programming. So I wanted to share that as a commitment, and we've already started to have conversations with at least two other communities, and then other organizational partners to grow here in the Berkshires what we do. So yeah, we are creating this workshop, this training for other communities to create Indigenous Peoples Day events in 2022. Now is the time to start incubating those ideas if you have them. And the other thing that we're doing is a climate leadership initiative. The long-term goal, you could say, is the long term of 2030. So the next 8 years. Certainly our goal, our mission extends to way beyond that, to 2050 and to the 7 generations. But the next 8 years, our goal is to have at least 7,000 organizational leaders in the Northeast participating in our climate leadership councils, which I'll be putting out more information on our website over the coming months. And then through that to establish a climate leadership network here in the Northeast of breakthrough climate solutions that are rooted in relationships that are um, based in trust for one another. So when we trust each other, we can really go far together in regards to breakthrough climate solutions. And so stepping back, what I've realized is we can incubate that larger scale vision here in the Berkshires where I live, and in this general area, even beyond the Berkshires, this region, but particularly the Berkshires. The goal in the next 4 years, by 2025, we're going to have over 400 organizational leaders in our uh, climate leadership councils. And when I say councils, I'm talking about a cohort program of 12 organizational leaders who go through a 12-month, 1 year, year-long journey of leadership, focusing on self, on their organizational teams, and then building or initiating breakthrough projects through their organization, but in partnership with the other members of their cohorts, embedded in a larger uh, context of the climate leadership network. So that's the initiative starting off, is 400 organizational leaders participating, members in the climate leadership initiative. So much more to come on that in the later months of winter and then into the beginning of 2022. But I just wanted to share those initial ideas. I'm going to be beginning my own consulting project with someone who I have a great deal of respect for, Daniel Roth, one of the co-founders of a company called Jump Scale, and he's based in Albany. So we're going to focus in on this climate leadership initiative and really go to work on what's it going to look like? How are we going to make it really meet the need that we have right now to innovate and scale the transformation of our society on a whole systems level in order to do everything in our power to create a viable future for our children and the generations to come. So those are my words that I'd like to share. This many words I'd like to say. Again, happy Thanksgiving. And as my granddad, Jake Singer, says, all these words here: Jonah Hasli, Jonah Hasli, Jonah Hasli, Jonah Hasli. He says that after every prayer that I hear him make. Those words mean it's going to be good. As far as I know, it's a beautiful road ahead. Everything for you, for everyone that's listening, for all of us. It's going to be a beautiful Thanksgiving time, holiday season, winter solstice, New Year's, and wonderful year ahead, 2022. Thank you.